Hey guys, today I will show you how to evaluate numbers raised to a negative decimal power or negative fractional power or exponent. It's precisely the same thing. Or find the value of a number raised to a negative fractional or rational power or exponents. So there are a couple of steps, a few steps to keep in mind. First of all, convert the given decimal into a fraction. Second step, you want to convert your negative power and turn it into a positive power by applying the following rule. So a to the negative n, it's precisely the same thing. It's equivalent to 1 over a raised to the power of n. So basically, this negative power indicates the reciprocation. So you need to take the reciprocal, so 1 over. And finally, the last step. So you have to use the rule. So you have to convert the fractional power basically into a radical form or into a root form. And by the way, I do have a separate video on how to find the value of numbers raised to a decimal power or also raised to a fractional exponent or negative fractional exponent. So basically all of these videos, they are related to each other. And if you want to kind of brush up these things and just look up for more examples and explanations, you could definitely use the links that down below in the description box and check these videos later. Now, say you have been given something like this, 49 raised to the negative 0.5. So first of all, as I mentioned before, the first step, convert this decimal into a fraction. So you keep this base, which is 49 in this case, and 0.5 is just a half. It's a half power. Now, so do not get confused, do not get frustrated or overwhelmed. So your power is a half, and this a half has to be treated, has to be considered as a one entire power. So you don't want to split it, you don't want to go astray with this power. So basically, I'm going to use this property, and all you can do, you can basically match. So your n is precisely a half. So I'm going to rewrite this power and convert it into a positive. So it becomes just 1 over your base number, which is 49, goes on bottom. So it's your a, and your n is a half. So this power goes as a power for 49. And again, I have more examples on how to do this stuff for negative fractional exponent. So the link would be down below in the description box, and you could jump into this for take a look for more examples. And now at this point, I'm going to convert it and turn this fractional power into a radical form that allows me later to evaluate, to take the value of this number. So keep in mind that if you are given a power of a half, so say you have been given a raised to a half power, where a any base, provided that a is greater than or equal to 0. This is my disclaimer. So this a half power, so it's precisely the same thing as a square root of this base a. Again, this is my disclaimer, as long as a is greater than or equal to 0. So basically, some people think of this property as a kind of a separate property, but basically it derives from that property. So basically you could match up. Your m is 1, your n is 2. And all that says is your bottom number n goes as an index for your root, and your top number goes as a power. So this root, when you take basically a root, has to be raised to this power. So this is kind of a special case, if you will. And for me personally, I do remember, and it comes up a lot when you do math, when you do algebra. So it's really totally worth to remember. So I'm going to rewrite it as a root. So get back to this. So you want to keep it as a bottom, since it happens to be as the bottom of your fraction. So it becomes just a square root of 49. So, and all you need to do is just figure out the square root of 49. And basically 49 is a perfect square number. And perfect square number is basically just a number that has another number that multiplied by itself gives you back that original number. And just ask yourself, so what number has to be multiplied by itself in order to get to produce 49? And the answer is 7, since 7 times 7 gives you back this 49. So you end up getting 7 as a bottom, and your entire answer is a fraction. So it happens to be a fraction. So it's 1 over 7. Moving on, say you have been given 9 over 25 raised to the negative 0.5. The same steps, the same pattern to be used. So first of all, convert this decimal power into a fraction. Notice that your base, that your number that you are given happens to be a fraction. So no matter what your base is, it could be decimal, it could be a fraction, it could be just an integer, a number, a whole number like the first example. So whatever it is, keep it. So you don't want to change anything. So you want to rewrite this 9 over 25. And now at this point you still keep this negative power. And 0.5, as I did before, it's just a half power. Now, so we got rid of this decimal, and we, Lord, I've rewritten. We rewrote this power as a fractional power. Now the same steps. So you want to convert this negative power into a positive by taking the reciprocal. So again, keep in mind that negative power indicates the reciprocation. So basically the same steps. So, but since you are given a fraction, so this negative power, this reciprocation means that you need to basically just swap, just invert top and bottom, and your 25 becomes as a top, your 9 becomes as a bottom, and you have this power a half. So this negative symbol goes away, disappear, but you have to swap top and bottom. Here basically we did as well, but in this case you are given just a number, but since we are given a fraction, so the reciprocation, the negative power, all means that just you swap. You basically swap top and bottom. And finally, the last step. So you want to rewrite, you want to turn your fractional power into a radical form, into a root. So it becomes again just square root of 25 over 9. And at this point, recall that square root of a fraction can be broken down, can be split up as a square root of top over square root of bottom. So basically you could take a square root separately. So it's the same thing as a square root of 25 divided by square root of 9. So, and you just ask yourself for a top. So what number has to be multiplied by itself gives you back this 25. And the answer is 5, since 5 times 5 gives you 25. And the same thing goes for the bottom. So basically both of these numbers, 25 and 9, they're perfect square numbers. So the square root of 9 is just the positive value, basically, yeah? The principal value of 9. So it's just 3. Because 3 times 3 leaves you 9. So 5 over 3, that's your final answer. And it happens to be basically an improper fraction. You could turn it into a mixed number if you like. So since your top number again is greater than bottom number, so it happens to be an improper fraction, and you end up getting just 1 and 2 over 3. So either answer is fine, but if you are asked, or if you just love to have your answer as a mixed number and you don't want to leave your house like this, so it's totally up to your way. Alright, suppose you have been given something like 100 raised to a negative 2.5. The same steps. So first of all, convert this decimal into a fraction. So you keep this base, and your power becomes, so you keep this negative, so you don't want to lose anything. And now you need to convert 2.5 into a fraction. So you could do this stuff off to this. You could do this stuff off to the side. So 2.5, it's 5/10. And 5/10 can be reduced by 5, since 5 goes into 5 once and 5 goes into 10 twice. So you would be left with 2.5. And you want to convert it into an improper fraction. So it becomes just 2 times 2 gives you 4, plus 1 gives you 5/2. So this 2.5, it's precisely as a 5/2 as a fraction. So your power becomes 5/2. And at this point, the same steps. So you want to convert this negative power into a positive by taking the reciprocal. So it becomes 1/100 raised to the power of 5/2. And at this point, you want to convert this fractional exponent, this fractional power, into a radical form. So 1 you keep on top. So this 2 becomes the index for your root, for your square root to be precise. So since we don't write 2 over here explicitly, so it implies it's understood to be 2, it's assumed to be 2. So 100 goes underneath your root symbol. And all this number, this value raised to the 5th power. And all you need to do is just figure out this number. So square root of 100, it becomes just 10, since 10 times 10 gives you 100 back. And all you need to do is just raise this 10 to the 5th power. So basically you need to just add the extra zeros. So it's going to be 5 zeros. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And you would be left with 1/100,000. So that's your value for that number. Right, and the last one, finally. Looks shocking, looks spooky. Yes, I know, don't worry, I'm going to break it down. Look, first of all, before we get into these steps, look at your base. Your base is a fraction, but on top of this, it's a mixed number. It's a little bit different from the second example what I did before. Since it happens to be as a mixed number, always convert it into a proper fraction. Because it would be after easier for you to take a square root, the third root, whatever root you have to take. Now, so just convert it into improper fraction. So 5 times 16 gives you 80 and plus 1, so you are left with 81/16. That's your base. So again, at this point, it's precisely the same number. We just turn it into an improper fraction. Now, we're going to follow these steps. So the first one, convert decimal into that fraction. So 75/100. So keep in mind that you have to still carry down this negative sign in front of your fraction, in front of your power or exponent. So 75/100, you could write it right off the side. So can be reduced by 25. So 25 fits into the 75 3 times, and 25 goes into 100 4 times. So you would be left with 3/4. So 3/4. That's precisely the same thing as this negative 0.75. So you are left with 3/4. That's your power. Now, the next step. So you want to take the reciprocal. And again, since your base happens to be as a fraction, the reciprocation means you need to swap. You need to turn it upside down. So your 16 becomes your new top and your 18 goes as a bottom. And your power becomes positive. It's 3 over 4. We're going to use the third step. So we're going to use this fractional power property, fractional exponent or fractional power property, if you will. So we're going to convert this fractional power into a radical form, into a root form. So keep in mind that that bottom number gets as a, so your bottom number is 4, as the index for your root. Your entire fraction 16 over 81 goes underneath your root symbol, your radical symbol, and all of this thing has to be raised for this top number, which is 3. Again, at this point, do not mix them up. Do not get confused between these 3 and 4. So again, the bottom number goes as the index for your radical symbol, and your top number goes as a power. So this entire thing has to be raised to the third power, has to be cubed. Now, all you need to do, so you do first whatever you are given in the parentheses. That's a golden rule for all entire math. So the fourth root of 16 over 81. And again, this fourth root, any basically root of a fraction, can be split up, can be broken down into 2 separate roots. So all you need to do is just take the fourth root of a top number divided by the fourth root of a bottom number. And still you have remaining this cubed. Now, all you do is just take the fourth root separately and just ask yourself, so what number has to be multiplied by itself 4 times? Be careful, since you are given the fourth root, not a square root. 4 times in order to produce this 16, and the answer is 2, since 2 times 2 times 2 times 2, 4 times leaves you that 16. So it's 2 over, and the same idea goes for bottom. So what number has to be multiplied by itself 4 times in order to obtain 81? And the answer is 3, since 3 times 3 times 3 times 3, 4 times leaves you with 81. So it's 2 over 3. So it comes out to be 2 over 3. And do not forget this cubed, so it's outside. And finally, oh Lord, oh God. Finally, the last step. So again, when you raise a fraction to any power, basically you raise separately top and bottom to this given power. So 2 cubed gives you 8, since 2 times 2 times 2, that's 8. You could figure out this things in your head, or you could write it off to the side, completely up to you. And your bottom number 3 raised to the cube power gives you 27. So it turns out, it comes out to be 8 over 27. So that's your value for this intimidating problem. Alright, with this being said, huge thanks for watching and train your brain. I know everyone hates maths, but if you like my video, please hit this like, share with your friends, leave the comments down below, and be sure to smash that subscribe button so you'll not miss out my new videos. And by the way, if you're up for more examples, I have a separate video on kind of miscellaneous examples with negative fractional powers, with normal decimal exponents, fractional exponents, negative decimal exponents. So all of these links would be down below in the description box, and you could definitely use them and check them out.